The Galactic Senate was the most powerful institution in the universe. It ruled over thousands of galaxies, dictated the fate of entire civilizations, and approved laws that shaped the Milky Way. Each type of old Fari until the war, commuters had a chair in the Grand Chamber, but there was one chair that had never been filled, the chair in the middle of the room. The Earth's chair was empty, as it had been for centuries. KYX, a young diplomat of the Farron Confederation, sat in his assigned place, his 4 fingers tangled on the polished metal table. It was his first time visiting the Senate, and although he had studied galactic policy for years, one question had always confused him. Why was the Earth's chair empty? Finally, he asked his question, his voice echoing through the chamber. Silence fell over the Senate for a moment. No one spoke. The question was simple, yet a wave of discomfort rippled through the gathered leaders. KYX noticed how some senators shifted uncomfortably, others exchanged glances, and some even looked up as if afraid to speak. The Chancellor, a giant reptile from the Dominion Svar, cleared his throat. His deep voice resonated in the room. "The Earth has decided not to participate," he said carefully. "They refused to visit. They refused to choose. They refused to govern." KYX frowned. "But why the silence?" Then an elder from Fari, his pale and wrinkled skin slow to move, replied, "Because they don't need us." His blind white eyes stared into nothing, and that is what surprised us. A chill ran down KYX's spine as he looked around the room, expecting someone to dismiss the elder's words as nonsense, but no one did. Silence stretched heavier than before. "They are just another species," KYX insisted, trying to mask his discomfort. "The same as us." "No," the elder shook his head. "Not the same." Chancellor Ulter turned to glare at the Thixer elder. "Enough of this," he growled. "The Earth is not relevant. We are not talking about them because there is nothing to discuss." But KYX was not satisfied. He could now see the fear in their eyes and the tension in their voices. They were afraid of the Earth, but why? His senator, a Farn, leaned in closer, his voice low. "Chamber," the head display flickered to life. "Emergency transmission," an officer announced. "Outer edge sector, ignored emergency sector." The senators turned as the screen displayed a grainy video. The image shook violently, the sound filled with static. A figure appeared, the silhouette of a fringe of the Leap. The Leap station had been abandoned centuries ago, or at least that was what everyone believed. KYX could not sleep that night. The transmission from the abandoned human station played on repeat in his mind, the fear palpable in the speaker's voice, the way it cut off so suddenly. KYX needed answers, and he knew exactly where to find them. Deep within the Senate complex, hidden from public access, were the limited archives, a vault of classified records containing everything the Senate did not want the Milky Way to know. KYX walked through the dark halls, his footsteps barely making a sound. His heart pounded as he reached a large security door. The entry refused him access, and the message flashed on the screen. He took a deep breath and released a small hacking device. In moments, it was done. They were engineers, innovators, and problem solvers. The lock clicked open, and KYX slipped inside. Brilliant data connections stretched before him, filled with centuries of hidden knowledge. He quickly searched for information on Earth. The system hesitated, as if reluctant to give him what he wanted, and dozens of restricted files appeared before his eyes. His breath caught. There were thousands of records on Earth. Most had been marked as sealed by the High Command, while others were simply deleted, erased as if they had never existed. But one file distinguished itself. It was old, nearly 1,000 years. The title sent a thrill down his spine. The final report of the Senate on the retreat of Earth. KYX opened it. The screen flashed, and a video protocol began to play. A human silhouette appeared, dressed in an old military uniform. His facial expression was inscrutable, his voice calm but heavy with finality. "This is Admiral Daniel Graves of the Terran Defense Fleet," said the man. "The Earth will no longer participate in the Senate. We are withdrawing from all intergalactic matters." KYX leaned in. This was the moment when humanity left the Milky Way, but why? "We saw what lies beyond," the Admiral continued. "We learned the truth about this universe and the enemies lurking in the darkness." KYX's fingers trembled against the console. "Enemies? The Senate is blind," the Admiral declared. "Do you think you have control? Do you think your fleets and laws keep you safe?" He paused, his gaze turning cold. "You are wrong." KYX's heartbeat quickened. "We are leaving," the Admiral continued. "Not out of fear, but because we must prepare. When the day comes that the void stirs once more, we will be ready. The screen glitched. The last words sent a chill through KYX's bones. Pray that we never return. Then the file deleted itself. KYX staggered back, his mind raced. What had the humans seen? What had they been preparing for? And why was the Senate afraid of their return? Suddenly, the door slid open behind him. Log off from the console. KYX slowly turned around. Chancellor Ulter stood flanked by armed guards. His reptilian eyes shone with anger. You shouldn't have seen that, the Chancellor growled. KYX swallowed hard. He had just uncovered the Senate's biggest secret, and now they would not let him leave alive. Panic surged through KYX as the guards approached. His heart raced in his chest. Think, don't react, he said, lifting his hands. The Earth knows something dangerous. The Chancellor's expression remained cold. And that is why you should have remained ignorant. The guards moved to seize him. KYX instinctively grabbed the nearest data console and inserted his hacking device into the port. He darted behind it, triggering the doors to open faster on the left. But just before he could reach them, a blow struck him, blurring his vision. The last thing he saw before darkness enveloped him was the cold smile of the Chancellor. When he regained consciousness, he found himself on a ship. A familiar voice said, "You are lucky to have convinced the Chancellor not to kill you." KYX turned his head. Senator Varn was nearby, his expression grim. KYX, where are we? Varn glanced at the control panel. We are taking you away from the Senate, to a place where you cannot call for help or cause problems. KYX clenched his jaw. Listen to me. The Senate is hiding something enormous. They didn't leave. They were preparing for something. You saw the transmission, the abandoned research station. I saw it, Varn interrupted. And that's exactly why I'm doing this. KYX frowned. Varn leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You're right, KYX. The Senate fears the Earth. But they fear something else even more, KY. Rex's eyes widened. What? Varn hesitated. Then he pressed a few buttons on the console. A holographic star map appeared. It showed the outer rim and a blinking red signal. The distress call Krex murmured and Far nodded. The Chancellor wants this signal erased. He's sending a fleet to destroy the station, so that no one finds out what's there. Kyer stared at the blinking light. His mind spun. We have to get there first, he said. VN exhaled, and then finally he reached out and unlocked Kai's restraints. We leave now, Farn said, but if we find what I think we will, we may not come back with that. The ship changed course toward the lost human station toward the truth. The small ship hurtled through hyperspace, leaving the galactic Senate far behind. Kyer sat in the cockpit beside Senator Farr, his mind racing. The distress signal from the abandoned human station pulsed on the display, a silent beacon calling them toward the unknown. Kyer turned to Farn. What exactly do you think we'll find? Farr's face was unreadable. The last time anyone spoke of Earth's fleets, they were unmatched. Some say they left behind something dangerous. Others say they took something with them. Kai's stomach twisted. And you think the Senate knows? Farn let out a humorless chuckle. The Senate fears Earth more than any enemy we've ever faced. Do you know why they let the humans leave without a fight? Krex shook his head. Farr leaned forward. Because we didn't let them leave, Krex. They walked away on their own, and we were too afraid to stop them. The word sent a chill down Kai's spine. Before he could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Destination reached. They exited hyperspace, and the human station came into view. It was massive, an ancient construct floating in the cold void, its surface covered in dust and deep cracks lined the structure. Yet it still held together as if refusing to die. Farr checked the sensors. No life signs, but the distress beacon is still AC. I've swallowed hard. Something's waiting for us. They maneuvered the ship into a docking bay. The landing thrusters kicked up a cloud of dust. The station was eerily silent. The metal hallways were dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. As they stepped inside, the air was thick, not with dust but with something else, a feeling, a presence. KYX gripped his blaster. I like this, Fern. Scanning the walls, this place was abandoned for centuries, but look at the power levels. There's still energy running through this station. Kirix frowned. Then who turned on the distress beacon? A faint sound echoed through the corridor, a metallic click. Both men froze. KYX aimed his weapon into the darkness. We're not alone. Farr pointed toward a control panel. Let's check the logs. If there are any records left, we need to see them. They moved quickly, reaching the station. Command center dust-covered consoles hummed softly, their screens still active after centuries of silence. KYX activated the last recorded log. The screen flickered and a grainy image appeared. A human scientist, fear in his eyes. "This is Dr. Ilis Carter. We were wrong, so wrong." Static crackled through the speakers. "They told us not to look. They warned us never to activate the last archive. But we did, and now a deep rumble shook the station. The video glitched. They're coming back." Dr. Carter's voice trembled. "We thought they left us behind. We thought we were safe, but we were fools." KYX and Farn exchanged a look. The recording continued. They never left. They've been watching, waiting, and now the scientist's face twisted in terror. Humanity is coming home. The screen shut off, a heavy silence fell over the room, and then somewhere deep in the station, a low mechanical voice activated the final protocol, initiating standby for arrival. KX's blood ran cold. Something was waking up. A deep rumble shook the station, dust rained from the ceiling, and the floor vibrated beneath their feet. Kyer spun around, gripping his blaster tight. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. Vienne's eyes were locked on the screen. The final words of Dr. Carter's law echoed in his mind. "Humanity is coming home." Vienne swallowed hard. "I think something just woke up another tremor." The walls groaned as old machinery roared back to life. Then the station spoke. "Final protocol. Engage automated systems online." The lights brightened, monitors blinked to life, displaying lines of code in an ancient human dialect, and red warning symbols flashed across every screen. KYX stepped back. This station was never abandoned, was it? Vienne's fingers flew across the console. During the date, his breath hitched. "Oh no, KY." Rex's stomach twisted. What Far turned to him, face pale. "This isn't just a station, it's a command center." A new alert flashed on the screen. Reactivating fleet standby. KYX felt his blood turn to ice, reactivating the station. It trembled again. This time it wasn't coming from inside. Something outside was moving. KYX and Vienne sprinted to a nearby viewport. At first, they saw only the void, the distant stars, and the shattered remains of long-dead ships drifting in the silence. Then, one by one, dark silhouettes emerged from the shadows, gigantic shades hidden beneath the debris field. Their hulls gleamed as they powered up ancient reactors, coming to life after millennia of slumber. A fleet, not just any fleet, the lost Terran defense arm. Meta Kyer felt his breath catch. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering dreadnoughts and sleek warships. Titanic carriers bristled with weapons. Their designs were old but far more advanced than anything the Galactic Senate had ever built, and they were waking up one by one. Their engines ignited one by one. Their weapons came online. Parn grabbed KY. Rex's arm, his voice was barely above a whisper. The Senate always wondered why Earth never came back. KYX couldn't take his eyes off the fleet. They never left. He murmured, then a final message blinked on the screen. A single chilling sentence, the Terran Armada is online, awaiting orders. Kai's pulse thundered in his ears. Something told him they wouldn't have to wait long. The station's metal walls shuddered as the massive warships came fully online. Energy signatures spiked across the sector. The silence of deep space was shattered by the awakening of humanity's lost fleet. KYX and Varn stood frozen, staring through the viewport as the enormous ships moved like sleeping giants shaking off the dust of time. Engines ignited, weapons systems hummed to life, and defense protocols activated. KYX exhaled sharply. This fleet could wipe out the entire Galactic Senate in hours. Far's fingers trembled over the console as he accessed more data. His eyes widened. This isn't just a fleet, it's a war machine, an entire planetary invasion force. But why would humanity leave all of this behind? Kyer frowned. Maybe they never meant to leave it. A sudden alert blared through the station. Incoming transmission detected. Source unknown. The screens flickered. A new voice, cold and mechanical, filled the room. Unauthorized access detected. Identify. Far hesitated before speaking. I am Senator Far of the Galactic Senate. We mean no harm. The voice interrupted, identity not recognized. Scanning, a red laser flickered over them, scanning their bodies. The station's AI processed the results, then silence. The screen shifted, revealing something neither of them expected, a human. His face was obscured by a helmet, his uniform dark and imposing. He sat in a command chair surrounded by flickering holoscreens, his eyes locked onto them with an intensity that sent chills down KY. Rex's spine, then he spoke. You are not authorized to be here. Kyr swallowed. Who are you? The figure leaned forward slightly. I am Admiral Victor Hale of the Terran Defense Armada, and you have trespassed on a classified military installation. Far's breath caught. This station is active. Admiral Hale nodded slowly. It was never deactivated. KX's mind reeled. But the Senate always thought Earth abandoned the war, that they left the galactic stage centuries ago. Hale's expression darkened. That's what we wanted them to believe. The word sent a chill down KX's spine. Far took a hesitant step forward. But why? Why hide a fleet this powerful? Why leave the Senate? Hale's eyes burned with something unreadable. You don't understand, he said quietly. The Senate was never humanity's ally. We left because we saw what was coming. KYX's hands tightened into fists. What was coming? Hale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pressed a control on his console, and a massive holographic display filled the room. KYX and Varn gasped. A vast armada larger than anything in recorded history was moving towards Senate-controlled space. Unknown ships, dark and menacing. Unlike any design in the galactic records, a hostile force. Hale's voice was grim. They're already on their way. He turned to them, eyes cold as steel, and the Senate is not ready. A heavy silence filled the room. Kyrix and Vienne stared at the holographic display, their minds struggling to process what they were seeing. A massive armada of tens of thousands of warships was approaching Senate-controlled space. Their black hulls gleamed like obsidian, their formations precise and deadly. KX's throat was dry. Who are they? Admiral Hill's face remained expressionless. We call them the Harbingers. They are the reason we left the Galactic Senate, the reason humanity vanished. Vienne shook his head. This doesn't make sense. The Senate never detected an invasion force. There was no war, no battle. If these Harbingers existed, why did humanity leave instead of warning us? Hale leaned forward because we saw the truth. The Senate wasn't ready. You were too focused on politics, too blind to see the storm coming. If we had stayed, we would have been dragged into your weakness, and we would have died alongside you. The words cut deep. Varn felt the weight of them settle over him like a crushing force. KYX narrowed his eyes. So you just left, hid your fleets, and abandoned the galaxy? Hale's gaze hardened. No, he pointed at the hologram. We spent centuries preparing, watching, and studying their tactics. We built the greatest war machine in history, ready to strike the moment they arrived. Far's heart pounded. Then why reveal yourselves now? Hale exhaled slowly. Because time is up. The Harbingers are here, and this war, it won't be like anything the galaxy has ever seen. A deep boom echoed through the station. The viewport flickered as the Terran Armada shifted into full combat readiness, engines roared, and weapon systems primed. Shields powered up the ancient fleet. It was no longer sleeping, it was hungry. A message flashed across the command console. Harbinger forces detected engagement imminent. Hale turned to them. His voice was like steel. The Senate won't survive this without us, and I need to know. His piercing gaze locked onto Far. Are you here to help, or will you get in our way? Far's mind raced. The Senate would never believe him. They had dismissed Earth as nothing more than a forgotten power. But now humanity stood between them and extinction. KYX clenched his fists. What do you need us to do? Hale gave a grim smile. Tell the Senate the truth. Boom, the void outside rippled as dark shapes emerged from hyperspace. Sleek, jagged ships with glowing red cores, the Hargers had arrived. Hale turned back to his console. We've waited long enough. Time to remind the galaxy why humanity was feared. With a single command, the Terran Armada surged forward. The war had begun.